Welcome back to the Home Path Podcast. This is Raphael, and today we're going to talk about the psychology of home buying, why we buy homes the way we do. And if you've ever wondered why some people rush to buy a home while others just hesitate for years, it's not just about having the finances, it's about the psychology. So today, I'm going to dive deep into the hidden mental triggers that influences people to buy a home and what makes their buying trigger gland. Like, why did they buy it? So I'm going to break that down, why fear, social pressure, and decision fatigue plays a massive role in their ability to buy a home, and how to make a smarter and more confident choice, more informed choice once you know how to do so. So why this matters, it's for everybody. So if you haven't been on this podcast, my name is Raphael, and I'm going to help you navigate through homeownership with confidence and clarity. And today we're going to be stepping into the way of interest rates, loan programs, and we're going to talk about, even more powerful is the mindset to have, because let's be honest, most people don't fail to buy a home because of money. They fail to buy a home because they have fear, they have uncertainty, they're overthinking, and overall they just don't have any clarity. So today we're breaking down the hidden psychological triggers that affect your buying decisions and how to overcome them. So here's what we're going to learn today is the biggest fears that hold people back, how social pressure influences your decision to buy, and how to make a confident and financial smart decision without any regrets. Now, some people may regret it for whatever reason, but overall in the long term, it's always the upside. So the fear factor, why people hesitate to buy. And let's talk about the fear, because it's the number one reason that holds people back in buying a home. Fear of making the wrong decision. Man, I can't tell you how many people I speak to who they just fear that they're going to make the wrong decision. And indecision breaks them down even more in the long run, because they may wait like 3 or 4 years before they pull the trigger, because they always think that their indecision and their hesitation is going to help them. But it doesn't, because people think that, what if I'm buying a home and then I regret it later? What if I overpay for a home? What if the market crashes? But here's the reality. No one can predict any market conditions, not billionaires, not market investments. The key is to focus on your long-term strategy. So don't focus on the fears, focus on your long-term strategy. What do you want 5 to 10 years from now? If all you did over the next 5 to 10 years, okay, listen to me. If you just said, I'm going to buy a home, and when I look back, I don't want any equity. I just want to be able to look back and say, after 10 years, I just want my money back, right? You can't do that with rent, but at the bare minimum, hear me out. If you look back and you bought a home and you said, look, it's fine if it didn't appreciate $100,000. If I had to sell it, I just want to get my money back. I think that would be a good day. Now, you can't do that with rent. I know some of you have been renting for 5 or 10 years, and you can't say, oh, I'm just going to stop renting and take my equity or whatever I paid into it, back. So that is one of the things, is focus on your long-term strategy. What is that for you? Are you going to rent out the property? Are you going to just sell it? Maybe, use that money as a down payment for something else. What is your long-term strategy? I like to advise people on long-term visions and not so much on short-term plans. Because the fear of financial commitment, a mortgage feels like a huge responsibility to some people, especially if all you've ever committed was to like a cell phone plan and maybe a car payment. So a lot of people haven't had the responsibility, especially people that live at home. They like break down and they just think it's like the end of the world to have a 30-year mortgage. They think they're doomed for the rest of their life, because they don't have the capacity to wrap their heads around just having a mortgage. It doesn't end your life. It's a vehicle. It's a tool. But it shouldn't hold you back because you haven't committed to, some people can't even commit to a relationship or marriage. They've been dating the same person for 10 years and still can't commit to them. No wonder it's hard for them to commit to a mortgage, because they think it's the end of the world. They can't even commit to a partner, let alone you think they're going to commit to a mortgage? Think about that. So a mortgage feels like a huge responsibility, and guess what? So is paying rent. You still got to pay it, right? So it's the same thing. Or if you want to do a play on words or in your mind or trick your mind, think of it as just paying rent. You're always going to be paying rent. Rather just pay rent on a mortgage than an actual rent. And like any rent, homes build equity over time. Not like in 1 year, but over time, let's say a decade. Okay, maybe you're not going to keep the home for 30 years. Maybe if you keep it for 10. And if you're renting, you're already making a monthly payment. So what's the difference? You just got to reframe the way you look at things, because fear plays with your mind. Fear of the process of being is just overwhelming, right? You just think that it's going to be this daunting thing. And guess what? It's going to be uncomfortable because you've never done it. So buying a home feels complicated, but only if you're doing it alone, because if you don't have people on your team telling you what you're signing or why things are done certain ways, I get it. You don't understand real estate contracts or law, negotiations, tactics, strategy, mortgage strategy. You don't understand any of that. But guess what? That's why some of us are licensed professionals who have put a lot of deals under our belt, who are trying to guide you through the buying process. That's why we're here, right? And that's why working with a good real estate agent or a lender makes the process easier. It's not going to always be smooth sailing. Something can come up in the appraisal and the inspection, but guess what? Work with somebody who's got some experience, who can to get you to the finish line. At the end of the day, all that matters is, can you get me to the finish line? Because if you worry about the wrong things, you're not worried about getting to the finish line. It's a complicated process, but we simplify it. There's so many moving components and so many people there. The underwriter, the account manager, the escrow, the title, both parties, buyer, seller, both agents. There's so many people involved in the transaction. And a lot of times you don't see that because it's all behind the scenes. So working with someone can help you reduce that anxiety or that stress. Sometimes there's social pressure of just, keeping up with the mentality, whether you realize it or not. Society does play a huge role in your home buying decisions, because you get a lot of advice from, your broke uncle who hasn't bought a house. You get a lot of advice from people, friends or family who haven't been in your position. And a lot of times I had people in my corner that didn't have the best interests giving me advice as well. Whether you realize it or not, it's definitely playing an influence, especially family. You ever had a parent tell you that, you got to wait till you get 20% down? A lot of times if you're still living at home, it's never going to seem easy to you. But here's the truth. Times, they have changed. Things change from when they bought a house. Or a lot of times it's their fear because they lost a home in 2008. Things have changed. Your parents bought homes in completely different times in different markets. So you don't need to make decisions based on, something that happened, many years ago, a decade ago, and it's just outdated. Laws have changed. The things that, we do on a day-to-day basis change. I get it. I lived through that 2007, 8, 9, 10 era. I lived through it. So I know how to talk to people about it because I lived through it. I saw the people that were losing their homes during that time. And then sometimes comparing yourself to friends and family, just, some of your friends may own a home, some of them not. It doesn't matter. Everybody's in different positions. And a lot of the times people forget, sometimes what's hilarious is that when you go to a barbecue and you'll say, hey, I just bought a house. I'm like, how much did you put down? What's your payment? What's your interest rate? All of that stuff is irrelevant. Who cares? Because they make different kind of money. They have a different credit score. None of that information is irrelevant or helpful information because you are both not in the same situation. 99% of the time, you don't have the same credit score. 99% of the time, you guys don't have the same finances. That person has a different car payment than you do, credit cards, and income. All of that is different. So it's irrelevant to say, well, what's your payment? How much did you put down? Yes, it's like helpful resources to know, okay, they put a little bit more money down, but you want to know the true benefit when you buy a home. And it's not getting your keys. It's not, because when you spend that first night in your own home, it's a different feeling that I can't explain to you. I mean, some people just cry because it's the version of yourself that you had to overcome to achieve that. And for some of you, it was very painful. You had to pay off a lot of debt. You had to do a lot of sacrificing, cutting back on meals, or whatever you have to do. A lot of times it's the version of yourself that you have to become in order to get there. And that's what people don't see. That's why it's irrelevant when people ask those questions like, what is your interest? Well, the interest rate changes every day, every hour. It doesn't matter. Look at that individual and who they became because they decided to make a decision. And then the last one is the forever home. There's a huge myth that people think that the home they buy is going to be their forever home. A lot of people get stuck because they think that they need to buy the perfect home right away. And it's not going to happen, especially with higher interest rates and the purchase price. A lot of times you're not making, $250,000 to be able to just pick any house you want. A lot of you still making just barely, maybe even six figures. And I'm talking about maybe $10,000 a month. And still you're not going to buy your dream house in the area that you want 99% of the time. It's just the reality of the cost of living now. So your forever home could be just a stepping stone. And then you can upgrade later. So what's important here is just getting yourself in the game. So the next one is decision fatigue. And a lot of times when you have decision fatigue, it's just because you don't know what to do. You got too many options, right? And we'll talk about that later. But hopefully this gave you some clarity around removing some of the fears around that. I mean, it's a lot of times because you don't have the capacity. You've never had a, $3,600, $4,000, $5,000 mortgage payment. I get it. It's a huge commitment. But a lot of times that's why you need to get yourself ready. Because you have so many small commitments right now, or you don't commit, that everything seems like it's overwhelming. It can be if you make it, but if you free yourself by just getting clarity around what needs to be done. So that's all I got for you guys today, and I'll talk to you soon.